Bridges, with your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey, good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. I'm really glad to have you with us today. You know, there are a few political voices in this community that sustain themselves over any real length of time. The exception would be former Mayor Jack Ford. He's with us this morning. We're talking about the state of the city of Toledo. Help me in welcoming former Mayor Jack Ford.
Hi, it's good to see you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. It is so good to have you here. You look fabulous, by the way.
Well, I'm feeling better.
Good, good. I was going to ask you that. Lots of people ask me to ask you that when I see you. Lots of people are concerned about you, want you to do well.
Well, it's been about a year, and it took me a long time to kind of get back to full strength, and I feel like I've done that, and I've been blessed. You visited me when I was ill, so you know how sick I was at one point.
Yeah, very, very sick.
But I'm back teaching at the university and doing things in the community, so I'm back.
That's cool. And the great thing is that I hear you're back in politics.
Well, I'm interested in running for city council. When I look around the community, particularly the older neighborhoods, our housing stock, for a variety of reasons, has deteriorated almost beyond redemption. I mean, it's just terrible. I think a lot of people, when they're traveling through some of the older neighborhoods, just stay on the main thoroughfares, and they kind of avert their gaze to what's going on, 2 or 3 blocks inside.
Sure.
But if you travel those ways, you'll see some streets with 9, 10 homes in a row, boarded up, blighted.
Absolutely.
And it's just terrible. And I think that spills over into crime, kids not really wanting to do well in school and other areas, and domestic violence and so forth. So I see that, and I think the city administration needs to have a different policy with respect to housing.
What do you think that policy should be?
I think there should be a complete overhaul of how we fund CDCs, how we work with banks, and allowing people to stay in their homes. If people have followed it closely, in the last 10 years, we've had a drop in the number of community development corporations. Where we once had 8 or 9, we're really down to 2.
And let me ask you about that, because that's absolutely true. The city might say, in response to your comment, that it is in fact the CDCs that are failing these neighborhoods, that the CDCs over the years have not been able to keep themselves afloat, they've not been able to aggressively address the issues in the neighborhoods, and that is manifested by seeing them go away one at a time. You're right, we're down to 2.
Well,
none of them in the central city.
One of the things good about being a former mayor is that I know where a lot of the bodies are. And one of the bodies in this case is that the city pays hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to staff members to directly monitor and provide assistance to the CDCs.
Would that be inside of the departments of neighborhoods?
That is in that department.
Okay.
And actually there is a monthly monitoring report that should be going to the mayor and to the deputy mayors for review, telling them literally chapter and verse how each CDC is doing. So when one says that the decline either happened overnight or happened because of incapacity, I don't buy it, because I know when I was mayor, I would call them up once a month, and I took the time to read the reports, and I knew which agencies needed a boost, were having problems, and so forth.
So how's it different now than when you were mayor?
I don't think someone's been at the helm in the mayor's office looking at it. And of course there were some problems in the the overall department, but there was a role to be played, one of oversight, almost akin to how Congress provides oversight to the federal administration. I think council and the mayors, particularly mayor's deputies, have an oversight responsibility on the CDCs. Because if you don't, you end up with what we have.
With what we have now.
I had one other point.
Please, go ahead.
The other problem I see is that when you talk about housing or habitation, we should have a big picture look. And I've talked with Mrs. Santiago about this, and the city charter.
Lourdes Santiago would be the director of the Department of Neighborhoods, for those of you who don't know.
And the city charter talks about the health and welfare of the citizens. So it seems to me that when you look at things like Moody Manor, which is really a housing site, some of the other downtown developments, the city at least should push HUD, some of the private developers who perhaps have hands-on responsibility to do their job, but we don't. And it spills over into other areas. The Wayman Palmer Center, which for years has been literally a community center for the area right next to Moody Manor, for example, has been so diminished in the past 3 or 4 years, actually the past 2 years, that they're now essentially just a daycare center.
Now, but the Wayman Palmer Center is actually an organization run by the YMCA.
Okay,
is that right?
Yeah, but the city gave that building for essentially, $1 a year use. The mayor, council members, community leaders have to push, in this case, the Y, to do what's needed to keep that center vibrant, because that center is the only thing that I can see that's there in that community for those kids to go to and to be helped. When the young girl, a young baby really, was shot to death in Moody Manor, we all were up in arms about that, and we had press conferences and all that. But yet, just 2 blocks away, a community center for kids who are now running the risk of going under because we're not focusing on it. And you can look at everything from the Urban League and so many other institutions in the older neighborhoods are going down.
And I want to, one of our viewers, whose name is Tracy, asked me to ask you this question, and I think it's a germane question. We can talk about the city's role in all of this, but you mentioned those community organizations, the Urban League, the NAACP. What role does the community have in this? I mean, is it your expectation that government change this all on its own?
No, but government has a role to play, and political figures have a role to play. One of the things about being in politics is that it gives you the platform to raise concerns, to heighten awareness, to speak out and do things. As you know, I used politics to start organizations, Adelante, SASE, even at one time, I don't even know if you remember this, I was chairman and a temporary director of the Cordelia Martin Center.
I remember that very well.
And
yes.
Now it's, become such a big thing under your leadership.
Thanks.
But it was politics that gave me the platform to push that. Or the CareNet program,
Sure.
and you're still involved now. I think
Absolutely.
you're on the board.
We are.
But that was politics. And I think we need to have a big view on a lot of these issues and really bang the drum and tackle it. We seem to be retrenching and pulling away. And it doesn't always mean money. Sometimes it just means a voice.
It means a voice, absolutely. Now, what would you say to those folks who say, you have served the city well, and you've served the city for a very long time in a number of very important capacities. Don't you really want to rest now? Don't you want to be the mentor? Don't you want to be the go-to person in terms of wisdom around these issues?
Yeah, you know, there's really no role like that. That's a myth. Either you serve or you don't.
Or you do.
And I've mentored 2 or 3 dozen folks that are in political and other public life today. But as long as I can contribute, and as long as I'm paying taxes, I think I got a right to try to continue serve. Now, if I get sick or for some reason could not serve, then of course I should step down. But I'm not at that point.
Okay, all right. We're going to ask you to hold those thoughts, all right? We're going to go away for just a second. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. I promise we will be right back.